Welcome to Writer's Life, an ongoing conversation with writers, authors, and folks in the publishing industry. I'm your host, Marvel Harrison, Publishing Director, Mimbres Press of Western New Mexico University. It's a pleasure to share a conversation today with Darcey Steinke, author of 8 books. She's lectured extensively throughout the U.S., abroad, including Princeton, Columbia, University of Mississippi. I think she was a writer in residence there, American University of Paris, and her writing has appeared in Boston Review, Vogue, New York Times Magazine, Guardian, all of the papers that so many of us are still tracking. And welcome to Writer's Life, Darcy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
So we're really open to just chatting with, learning a little bit about how did you even get started in the whole writing world?
Okay, that's a very early question. Okay, I was a book lover as a kid, of course. To my father was a minister. I think there was like several things that came together to sort of make me a writer. I think the fact that my father was always in his office writing a sermon. I think that had a profound effect on me. I think I stuttered quite a lot, and you may hear me stutter a little bit now. I may hesitate a little bit, but it was worse when I was a kid. It was more pronounced. So that really drove me inward, and it made me want to be, if I couldn't be graceful and elegant when I was speaking, I definitely wanted to try to be elegant, in my writing, and rhythmic in my writing. So that kind of drove me toward writing and toward books. And then I think the third part is my love of books. I mean, even as a little girl, I just adored books. I couldn't wait to go back to the library to get my 10, picture books, new picture books. Was a big reader. So I think those 3 things sort of pushed me in the direction of writing.
I don't think we can say enough about getting young people, children, toddlers, babies, into books. There's a really beautiful pediatric program called Reach Out and Read, where at every wellness visit, the pediatrician reads a book to the child.
Oh, that's such a great idea.
To model to the parents,
right.
And the child goes home with that book.
Ah, great idea. I love
and that's
it.
from 6 months to, I think, 5 years old. I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, look at where it took you.
Yeah. I mean, even now, I'm like a book fanatic, like I love books. I'm always buying books, ordering books, reading books. My stack is always bigger than I'll ever read, but they just give me a lot of hope, books do. They really help me. They really nourish me,
So your writing is varied tremendously in terms of, your fiction and then your journalist bent. Do you have an area that you would like, that you particularly enjoy?
I don't know. I've been lucky in that I started out writing novels, and then I wrote a memoir, and now I'm writing these books. My last book, A Flesh Count Diary, was sort of a mix of sort of some scientific research. It was about women in midlife, and particularly about menopause, about I found out the 2 creatures who go through menopause are human women and female killer whales. So that really thrilled me. So now and my new book is sort of similar. It's a little bit of memoir, a little bit of research. So I've been lucky, I feel like, and then I've been able to sort of go all over the genres and do different things. The sad thing about, in some ways, like my work is, when I'm doing one kind of book, I always long for another. So like I'm doing this nonfiction book now, but I think, oh, I want to write a novel. Why didn't I decide to write a novel? I have to wait so long now to write another novel. So, but after I finish this book, I might not write another novel. It's just that I sort of want to write every book I like. I wish I had written it. You know what I mean? So I'm very kind of book greedy. You know what I mean? So, I love it all.
Does that mean that you just work on one book at a time?
Yeah, pretty much. I sometimes will make notes for future projects, my notebooks and stuff in my journals. But pretty much I'm the kind of person that and my current book, which I'm writing for Harper One, it's a book about the body, pain, and faith. And so I have to do a lot of research. And so there's no way I could work on another project. I mean, that's my one project now. And it's important for me to do the best I can and really engaged with it, to be really like completely with it.
Well, I really
So as
enjoyed
I work
how you wrapped in the scientific piece
on.
to Flash Count, and especially I was admiring your travels to go visit,
Yeah, it was
you know,
amazing. Yeah, it was so fantastic. Yeah.
a killer whale, and to actually feel and look and seem, according to your writing, in
Yeah.
tune with that whole experience.
Right.
And and power to you, you audio tape that in your own voice.
Yeah,
And
right. It's true. It's true. Yeah, yeah.
I think that adds to the depth of it.
Well, I'm glad that you listened to the audiobook. I'm not sure many people did, but yeah, it was amazing to see the whales. I really wanted to see the whales. There's one whale I wanted to see called Granny. She's 100, she's passed now, but she's a 105-year-old, matriarch of the southern resident whales. But I can't exactly say when I saw her that I felt in tune with her. It was more like her look was very censorious. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
we were on the sea kayak and they were all coming by and she sort of eyed us like, what the heck are you guys doing? Like, it didn't seem like, it wasn't like a rich lady and her connection with her elephant. You know what I mean? It was much more sort of like, get your stuff, get your shit together. You know what I mean? Like,
But
so
I was actually thinking maybe that was how you were in tune.
yeah, totally. Exactly. Okay. Very good. Yeah.
That was the piece that spoke to me. It's like,
yeah,
okay, it's time.
yeah, exactly. Well, like really see that she's not like just there for my pleasure, right? She's another creature trying to survive. That was really powerful for me,
Yeah.
very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
I was experiencing that piece of
I
how
hear you.
you
Right.
had that opportunity. Well, how you created that opportunity. I mean, the way you delve into a project, I think, is really quite remarkable.
Well, thank you. It's part of the fun of writing a nonfiction book, is you get to go on these little trips and you get to learn things that you would never have learned if you hadn't like started the journey of writing the book. And I really enjoy that. I mean, I've missed it over COVID, it's been much tougher, right? So,
Right.
but hopefully there'll be some trips, here in the future. It kind of deepens the experience of writing the book.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps you to bring other voices into the book too. So that's important, I think.
That's true. Speaking of bringing other voices in, what messaging do you find significant for your students and for people that you're supporting in their process?
As a writer, I think that I teach mostly graduate students. I've been very lucky. I love my students mostly. And I guess the thing I try to get them like connected to their like authentic subject matter.
Okay.
I feel, they're young writers, so a lot of them, some of them think like writing has to be about this other subject that they really don't know anything about, that's not very close to them or something. So I try to figure out what they actually care about, what they spend time sort of daydreaming about, the things that they really know about that are close to them, and have that. They may not write about that specifically, but I feel like that core needs to be the fuel that they write from, even if they make a lot of stuff up, so I try to get them like sort of like connected to their more like authentic self.
Well, I think that sounds like a really wonderful identity building process.
Uh-huh.
And we talk a lot about in this world about the need to belong and to connect. But if we don't belong and connect to ourselves, it's going to be pretty difficult to present something that connects to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think when you read a book, you really want to feel like, I always say, like a book is a blueprint for an emotional experience. It's like, I think this is why writing's so hard, because you don't just write a story like just for you, like you write like a blueprint that somebody else has to enter. You know what I mean? So each time somebody reads a book, it's a completely different book, because the reader has to bring their own memories, their own images, and they sort of, meet you halfway. So they create the book in their mind, So I think that's really true. I think the idea of writing, like writing needs to be very precise and like an emotional and true, but it needs to also sort of invite the reader in. And I do think the best way to do that is with is real like authenticity, like a realness,
Well, I think that open invitation is really fascinating. I mean, I think there's plenty of writers who want to write for their own process in themselves and not attempting or looking at, beyond that.
Right.
But if you want to be part of the world of being an author, published,
Right.
and moving forward,
right.
you're going to have to consider all of those.
Yeah,
pieces.
that's always the big thing. I think that separates like, the people who are going to really do it to the people who are going to write in their journal. And there's no problem with writing in your journal, but if you want to communicate, you're going to have to work with other people, like whether it's in writing workshops or with editors, right? Like you're going to have to really work with people, because writing is a community. It starts as a private thing and a lonely thing, but it becomes a communal thing, and you need people to help you move through that process. I'm a strong believer in that.
Well, I think that's that part about distinguishing in this day and age with all of the ability to self-publish. I mean, there's lots and lots of writers, and I'm beginning for myself to identify an author, not just someone who's published a book, because I think that's pretty easy to download and make it happen, but who can actually communicate to others that, the vehicle is going to be selling a book.
Right.
Not that has to be a commercial end and making a living at it, but there's such a difference between being a writer and being a published, sellable author.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's where taking in the comments of other people and working with them, thinking of editing, thinking of being edited or being critiqued as a positive thing. I always remember my father when I have two wonderful brothers who are quite successful, but one of my brothers was struggling some. And I remember my dad saying to me, it's been harder for him to mature because he didn't have the workshop system to help him. And that really surprised me, because in my mind, I was in writing workshops. I was getting my Master of Fine Arts to make my writing better. Like I hadn't thought of it as a process. I mean, he clearly thought of it as a process of like learning how to take criticism, learning how to take criticism, and then really having to deal with that, having to look and see, how can I make this better? How can I communicate better? And I remember just being so surprised that he thought of it as like a maturation process, you know what I mean? Not just a writing process.
Yeah, that's actually really well put. I think that if we're not in a position to be able to take feedback, we're going to spend our times performing for others. And there's a crossover, right? I mean, we want to communicate with others because we want to be able to, for someone who's interested in trying to sell a product, they want to sell a book.
Right.
But so unless you can have that raw authenticity that's there, I think you're going to be really shortcut of where you can head.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, you have to be very flexible to be a writer. I think people think writers have a strong voice and they have this point of view, but that's not been my experience. I mean, my experience is that myself and like other writers, they're like, what makes writers, sometimes very interesting people is that they have so much flexibility. They're so willing to take critique. They're so willing to look at things from different angles. You know what I mean? They are willing to think, oh, what's it like to be this person or that person? Like they have a lot of flexibility, actually. They don't, I mean, they may have a strong voice, but that voice like doesn't necessarily lead to rigidity, right?
Right. The strong voice actually maybe speaks loudest via the vehicle of flexibility.
Yeah. But yeah, like also vulnerability too, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit like, it sounds like your flexibility keeps you from getting bent out of shape.
Yeah, true. But also like, I mean, I'm like everybody. I get like, but then like, because of what I do, I have to really be like, I have to sometimes admit several times a day that something I'm like, something isn't working, that sentence isn't working, that paragraph isn't working. This idea that you're like trying to build, it's sort of a familiar idea. Like there's really no reason to, you know what I mean? Like you need to go deeper if we're going to work on it. You know what I mean? Like, so I have to like sort of constantly work with these things, so yeah, so it can be trying as well, but it's also very, it's very satisfying and exciting as well. I mean, I think anyway, so.
Do you have some writers I've spoken with talk about a writer's routine? Do you have kind of a routine for yourself?
Yeah, I like to work in the morning. I get up, I try to get up kind of early, like at 6 or 7, and then I try to get to my desk by 8. And then I try to do the majority of my work in the morning. Like, so if I can work from 8 to 1 or 8 to 2, that to me is a good day,
Okay.
And then I might take a little break, and then I'll try to do some soft work in the afternoon or the evening. I might read toward my project. I have to do a lot of reading now with my project now. So like I just finished my work for today. And then after I'm done with you, I'll sit in my bed for a few hours and I'll read and take notes, So I'm actually probably like, I mean, sometimes, at night I'll watch a little bit of Netflix or something, but I pretty much am always kind of working. Like I'm always looking for things that might help me with my project, and if I'm watching things that are very far away from the thing I'm working on, I feel uncomfortable. You know what I mean? I mean, even if I'm watching like, something that doesn't seem like it could, like in any way connect. But I'm still watching like an interesting film that has a cool narrative and some interesting characters. So I think to myself, well, this is sort of helping me with, my work. I'm seeing how another writer has put this story together. I'm seeing how it moves. I am always kind of judging it a little, but that's just part of being a writer, so I'm always kind of working in one way or another, I think,
It sounds like you're a pretty strong observer.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also enjoy it. I mean, I think the world is such an amazing place and there's so much wonder. And I mean, whether I'm in Brooklyn where I live in the regular year, or actually now I'm upstate, I have a little cottage upstate. And so the nature here is so amazing, but both places, I find both places sort of equally fascinating actually. But yeah, I love the things like in Brooklyn, you'll see things on the street that are just so amazing, so interesting. And then here, you see interesting people here too, but it's mostly like the wildlife and the mountains. And, I live right near the Delaware River, which is very beautiful, so it's those kind of things.
Well, before we wind down, is there anything that you would leave as what you might think about as a nugget for writers?
I guess it would be what I tell my students. I think the main thing is to really try to work every day if you can, or try to work as many days as you can, and even if you only have an hour, like I have students sometimes that have full-time jobs. So I'm always saying, even if you have an hour lunch hour, if you just bring your journal out, while you're eating, you just take some notes, or you try to add a paragraph to something you're working on. Because I really think that the unconscious has a lot to do with the work that we do. So I think to stay connected to it, like as many days a week as you can, is really kind of crucial. So I think you have to tend it. It's like everything in life. Like if you want things to be satisfying and to grow and to sustain you have to do some work to sustain them. So I think the creative life is very much like that. Like you sort of have to tend it. So I think the journal, the notebook, just to be kind of conscious, conscious of your writing life, and try to, care for it.
Well, it has been really a joy to speak with you today, Darcy, and thanks to everyone who's joined us. I'm Marvel Harrison, and from all of us at Mimbres Press, may your day be sparked with curiosity and wonder. See you again on the next Writer's Life. Thanks, Darcy.
Thank you so much.